How do I charge my client for long-term time-lapse? In this video, we're going to unpack some of the costs associated with long-term time-lapse and some of the things to consider when working out how to charge for it. So the first cost you want to account for when costing out your long-term time-lapse project is obviously the equipment. So you've got your long-term time-lapse system, your camera, your lens, and then also you need to remember you may have duties or taxes if you're bringing equipment into the country from outside. And then the other hidden equipment cost that sometimes people forget about is your installation. So do you need a pole? Are you going to need to pour concrete? Do you need to hire someone in to do that? You need to account for those costs as well.
Number two, you need to account for monthly costs. So oftentimes with time-lapse equipment, you will have a software cost that will be recurring monthly, as well as the cellular data costs. Now, oftentimes we'll see people blow out their cellular data costs because they didn't really consider the size of the photos that they're using, how often they're taking photos, and sit down and think through, okay, I'm going to take this many photos, this many days a month, and really think about all those things. If you think about them up front, you'll be good to go, and you can consider how much money you actually need to account for.
The third factor to consider when costing your long-term time-lapse project is your installation. So I referred before to your pole and other equipment you need, but then there may be some other costs. Do you need any accreditation or certification to go onto the building site to do the installation? Make sure you do that research, and you may need to pay to get that. And then also, do you need to hire any equipment, specifically an elevated work platform, a scissor lift? You need to account for that as well.
Number four is maintenance. Now, hopefully you've planned for your project well and you don't have to visit the site ever. Everything's running smoothly, you planned, and it's all ready to go. Unfortunately, Murphy's Law does apply here. What can go wrong will go wrong, and you want to be prepared for it. So we recommend budgeting to visit the site every 2 to 3 months because a spider might have made its web over the glass. You might want to have to clean off the dirty glass, and it is technology, and sometimes things do go wrong with technology. So you want to be prepared for it to be able to succeed in your project.
And the fifth factor is an obvious one, your post-production. And this really comes down to what are the client's expectations, what have you agreed? Is there going to be post-production every month to deliver a video, or is the post-production only at the very end to deliver the final time-lapse, or somewhere in between? Make sure that you've clearly communicated the expectations with your client and worked that out, and then budget for your post-production accordingly.
So those are 5 of the costs associated with long-term time-lapse. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to how to charge for long-term time-lapse. Number 1, you want to charge long-term time-lapse as a monthly service, not just as a final product, because you're providing a monthly value to the end client with the online gallery and a lot of the software that you're providing, and you can charge accordingly for that. The other reason why you want to charge monthly is that oftentimes, almost every single time, construction projects run over, and you want that to be a revenue producer instead of an expense that really cuts into your bottom line.
The second thing to consider is, will you charge a higher monthly fee that's all inclusive of things like installation and your post-production work, or will you charge a lower base fee and charge separately for each of those events? There are pros and cons to doing each one of those, but you need to work out which you're going to do and which will provide more value to your client so they're willing to pay for it.
Number 3 is the amount of post-production involved throughout the project. Now, each client has different expectations, and it's very important that you understand exactly what your client cares about. So it's about, is it going to be a monthly video that's a lower end with a high-end final product, or a high-quality quarterly? It's all about just setting the right expectations with your client.
The fourth thing to consider when working out how to charge your client is whether you're going to expect them to pay for the equipment costs up front, or whether you're going to bundle those equipment costs into your monthly service fee. Again, there are pros and cons to these two ways of doing it. If you get the client to pay for the equipment up front, it means you don't have to front the cash at the start, but it does mean they may own the equipment. You may not get it back at the end of the project. If you buy the equipment yourself up front, you own that equipment, and at the end of the project, you can put it out on another job and get it to work making more money for you. One way of killing 2 birds with 1 stone is to bundle the equipment cost into the monthly fee, but require the customer to pay, say, 3-4 months in advance, giving you that cash injection you need to buy the equipment up front.
So number 5, you have to consider what type of provider do you want to be. Are you going to be a high-end post-production product to that tier market, or do you want to provide a lower-end service and be more accessible to the market? There are lots of benefits to both, But the key question here is what clientele do you currently have? What clientele do you want to have going forward?
Yeah, and that really comes down to understanding your clients, understanding their needs, and understanding the value that they're looking for and how you can deliver that. And we unpack that more in another video around understanding how to pitch to construction clients and other end clients, and so make sure you check that video out.